Great. So I wanted to guide a bit of meditation this morning and take a traditional theme to help understand meditation. So the I was trained in the Buddhist tradition, and one of the main analogies that's used in that is the analogy of planting seeds. In the agricultural analogy. I've thought a lot about that, and sort of recognizing that for prior to a few hundred years ago, that was the main dominant technology that humans were had to learn and had revolutionized human society. So sort of cutting edge technology of the day, agricultural, just even the idea that particular seeds give rise to particular plants, and you can apply effort to put seeds in the ground, prepare the ground, put seeds in the ground, water them, and that when the conditions are right, when there's enough water, there's enough warmth and so forth, those seeds will germinate. And although that's trivial for modern people to understand, at least intellectually, it's revolutionary, partly because what happens when a seed goes into the ground, it's totally hidden. It is as if there's nothing there, right? You can't see the seed, you can't see what's happening, and so you're having to use some inference to make sense of what's hidden. And so one of the reasons this is used as a traditional analogy to help us to understand how our minds work. And the analogy is that we can be sitting here with our minds totally, or empty, or not thinking about anything in particular, and then an idea will arise, a thought will arise, a pleasant thought, an unpleasant thought, a neutral thought, whatever. And then the question is, where does that thought come from? It's a very simple analogy. And there's a number of analogies that are used to describe that, like a cloud forming out of a sky. That sometimes you can actually see a cloud come from nowhere. So out of a clear blue sky, a cloud just appears. Or a wave arising from an ocean, flat, still ocean. The wind blows it, wave arises. If you're out at sea, waves arise from a still lake or from a still ocean. And the analogy of planting crops is another one, just a field, a plain field, but then all of a sudden, in the desert in California here, you get your first rain out in the desert in March or whatever, and all of a sudden, millions and millions of wildflowers just start popping up out of this parched desert ground. And so clearly there's something hidden going on beneath the surface in the earth. There's something hidden in the sky that causes, the moisture that allows clouds to form. And there's something hidden in our mind that allows thoughts and feelings to arise. So then the question is, the thoughts and feelings that arise, are they dragging us away from a peaceful state of mind? Are they something that's frightening? Are they something that's alluring? Are they something that's boring or neutral? And as these thoughts and feelings arise, how well are we able to keep this state of peace? How well are we able to keep a state of homeostasis, like I talked about in a previous class? How well are we able to keep our mind in a balanced state, undisturbed by the things that are appearing to us, and being able to process the thoughts that arise, and by extension also being able to process peacefully all of the different outer experiences that we have. So it's one thing just learning how to process thoughts that arise out of our mind as we're daydreaming or whatever, trying to meditate and facing distractions. It's another thing to process surprises in our life, right? You open up an email and it's a terrible surprise or a pleasant surprise, or, you get a lot of surprises. And from one point of view, it's an outer thing that's happening, and we can say, oh, this is some outer event, we don't really have control over, but every outer event is really just triggering some inner reaction. And so there is a similarity between the variety of thoughts that arise while we are daydreaming or just on our own, and the variety of experiences we have in our daily life, that while there's an outer component and other people are seeing them too and so forth, they're triggering and drawing on our own inner tendencies, inner emotional tendencies. So one question is, how do the seeds get there, or where do these seeds in our mind arise or come from that that then arise as thoughts or feelings, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral? And although when I frame it like this, it's a very sort of simple simple analogy, simple way of describing it, not going to get into neuroscience and genetics and these kinds of things. But one question is, do we have any control over that process ourselves or not? Do we have no control? Do we have complete control? Do we have partial control over what happens in our mind and how we react to things? I would argue that partly is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you feel you have no control over how you react to what's happening around you and the feelings that come, you will have no control. You feel like you're totally driven by forces around you. If you feel like you have complete and absolute control in how you react to situations, that is a position of power that you are in effect ruling your own world, right? You are in control of at least how you react. And there's a lot of prominent thinkers who've argued for the power of at least believing that you have complete control. And I would agree that that's the most useful way to frame it. So if we ask, okay, if we have complete control, but we don't have immediate control, like there's these so I don't have control when I open up my inbox about whether this is going to be bad news or good news, particularly. But when I open a message, I react in a particular way. I do have these strong tendencies. I'll have a tendency to react, with a feeling of overwhelm if it's another thing to do, or a feeling of excitement if it's just. I get most excited about things where somebody else has said that they'll do it, or a meeting's been canceled, or it's something that's taken off my plate. Those are the most exciting emails I get. So how do we have control? Because we don't necessarily have control in the moment, because we don't have total control in the moment. Just like when a seed actually sprouts from the ground, you don't have total control over what that seed is, what type of crop that is. Where you have leverage or control is if you can help determine what seeds make their way into the ground. So then the question is, how do we lay down these tendencies that turn into reactions? So if we have a reaction, where do our tendencies to react positively or negatively, or stay calm, get agitated, where do those tendencies come from? And the traditional answer that I believe is backed by modern thinking as well, is that we lay down these tendencies by our behavior. And as you behave in particular ways, very active process, you're also implicitly changing how you see the world. So for example, an analogy I like a lot is if you practice giving, whether that's giving your ideas, your time, material generosity, material help, if you practice giving, you will tend to see the world as a more benevolent place, as a place where people give and people receive benefit. If you don't practice giving, you will tend to feel like you're in a deprived state and you have very little that you can give. Often people feel like the reason I don't practice giving is because there's nothing I have to give. And that implies a state of poverty, right? Like you you must be impoverished if there's nothing that you could give. Um, and so the idea of sowing like these random acts of kindness, where regardless of who you're doing them to, you're actually practicing acts of generosity. You're taking this as a training. So it's a way where, in addition to, you bring some immediate benefit to that person, you build this habit, but you also begin to gradually shift your perception of how the world exists, begin to perceive the world as a world of generosity, as a world in which people give, people receive benefit. There are things that are that are valuable. Um, um, Even looking around your home and thinking, what do I have that I could give away, give to others? You're seeing these things as potentially valuable to someone, as opposed to seeing them as just inadequate, like seeing only the absence of other things you would rather have. So giving changes the mind as a conscious action. So what I thought we could do is meditate a bit on this topic, beginning as usual with some breathing meditation, and also understanding that when we're meditating, um, we're strengthening our mind. And this is one particular way of building these mental habits. Meditation itself is an action. It's not a passive act, it's an active process. Okay, so we can sit comfortably. We can imagine ourselves sitting as comfortably as we possibly can be. Imagine ourselves in a beautiful, inspiring, uplifting environment. We can imagine ourselves surrounded by all living beings, in particular, imagining our parents closest to us, surrounded by close friends, family, and those we spend time with every day. We imagine these people are happy, smiling, faithful, open-hearted, and delighted to be engaging in meditation along with us. We take a deep breath in and out. And then another breath, and just invite ourselves to relax. And then another breath, and just ask ourselves, what is important right now? We allow ourselves to become aware of the rhythm of our breath, each inhalation and exhalation. With each breath, we just allow ourselves to relax a bit further. And keep our attention under our own control. And even in this short time, we may have noticed thoughts, ideas, memories arising. Our mind is normally quite busy. Over time in meditation, our mind can settle down, become more quiet, but still, thoughts will always arise out of the seemingly empty space of our mind. We can ask ourselves, where do these thoughts come from? Our tendencies to react in different ways, and how can we have leverage over these? What can we control? And we can think of this analogy of the field, putting seeds in the field. Where we have leverage is primarily in what seeds we put in. And the seeds that shape our mind are the seeds of our own actions, intentional actions. These seeds shift and shape our tendencies to react in different ways. So by engaging in actions like giving, we increase the potential to experience good fortune, to see things as valuable, and thus to experience wealth, actual wealth, instead of the constant poverty of feeling we don't have enough to give. And then we can make a strong determination to apply leverage on our own mind, especially by the activity of, by controlling our activities. As one example, the practice of giving, determining to engage in the discipline of giving, even if it's giving a smile, giving good thoughts, giving things that we no longer need to those who might find them beneficial, or even giving things that we find valuable to someone who will derive even more value from them than we have. Giving our services, our time, listening. All of these are acts of generosity, and all of these shift and change our mind. The hidden potentials in our mind to experience the world in a positive or negative light. So make a determination to practice giving throughout our day, throughout our week, throughout our year. And then we can develop some vision, imagining if everyone adopted this discipline of generosity, what kind of transformation could arise in our society? And then we can open our eyes and arise from